the Great British Manufacturing Podcast, brought to you by MTD, MFG and Jefferson.
Hello and welcome to the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. On this week's podcast, we will discuss the latest positive news from the British manufacturing sector over the last 7 days, and we'll interview another special guest. Oliver North, the CEO of Britain's leading emergency vehicle manufacturing group, Venari. This is going to be another great podcast. Joining me, as always, is Stuart Whitehead. Stuart, welcome.
Morning, Joe. Come for week. So, lots of stories to cover. Really looking forward to it.
Let's jump straight in then with AstraZeneca. Great news.
Yeah, the Anglo-Swedish group has unveiled its new £1 billion R&D facility in Cambridge, officially opened this week by Prince Charles. More than 2,000 scientists will be employed at the Discovery Centre, the pharmaceutical giant's largest single-site investment to date. The new facility will include the most advanced robotic, high-throughput screening and AI-driven technology, supporting AZ's focus on specialised medicines. And AZ, huge company. They employ more than 80,000 people, operate in over 100 countries, and its medicines are used by millions of patients worldwide.
Yeah, it's a massive site, isn't it? That would be an interesting tour for sure. The next story, metal packaging. There's set to be a new facility in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, Ardagh Metal Packaging AMP is supplied to Coca-Cola. Has announced plans to build a new £149 million beverage can manufacturing plant, and this is one of Northern Ireland's largest ever industrial investments. This will be based at Global Point business partner near Belfast. Details on precise job numbers are still being finalised, but it will lead to well over 100, possibly 200 jobs, looking at different reports for engineers, technicians and other roles. AMP is currently at the pre-planning and application stage, actively engaged with local stakeholders on the project, and further details of the plant will be announced over the coming months.
There's also an update from TVR, this new car that's going to hit the ground anytime now.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, this has been talked about now for a couple of years, the new Griffith, but TVR set to open its new manufacturing plant in Ebbw Vale early next year. These are the latest reports. The reborn British sports car manufacturer has announced a joint venture with lithium mining company EMC, which I believe are based in Australia, which will both help fund production of the forthcoming Griffith and ensure the supply chain for TVR's future battery requirements. So not too much detail, but hopefully that's going to happen in the first quarter. For sure. The next one, ZF Group. There'll be no strangers to people on this podcast. Most people will know of ZF, but they're opening up a new facility in the UK. It's great confidence from the German-owned company. Absolutely. So as you say, the German-owned automotive firm, they've officially opened its new £70 million technical centre in Solihull, located in the heart of the UK's automotive industry. The new 220,000 square foot technical centre will be home to around about 700 employees, but there is room for growth. The site features latest technology and infrastructure for developing advanced solutions for the automotive sector, including autonomous electric and connected mobility projects. ZF says the facility's design and architecture underpins the group's sustainability strategy for carbon neutrality by 2040. And obviously a great couple of weeks to Solihull. We covered the Norton's new factory a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, a good place to live if you're in the manufacturing world at the moment. But we'll take a short pause, if we don't mind, Stuart, from the latest news. And we've introduced this week's special guest. It's no other than Oliver North, the CEO of Britain's leading emergency vehicle manufacturing group, Venari. Oliver, welcome back.
How are you doing, Joe? Good to be back.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Just for the people that didn't listen to the first podcast, it's probably 6-7 months ago. Can you just bring us up to speed with your career today, your current role and responsibilities, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Oliver North, CEO of Venari Group. We are based in Brighouse, West Yorkshire. Venari was set up in 2019, actually, as the vehicle to make the acquisition of the UK's oldest and largest ambulance manufacturer, O&H Vehicle Technology. I basically worked in the emergency vehicle market for 10 years before that point. My company was actually acquired by a global leading emergency vehicle builder with a turnover of well over €1 billion. So once I was acquired by the Austrian company, a couple of years down the line, I was, as warned by my previous chairman, put in the pigeonhole and had the wings clipped and told to stay in only my territory. So with Brexit looming and obviously, the drum of UK manufacturing needing to be banged, I left a really comfortable role, which I was doing in second gear as well, to be honest, to turn around O&H Vehicle Technology, which were at the time private equity owned, and so I went in there at the start of 2019, and then by the summer I could see it was the turnaround was well and truly on. They had such a good pedigree of manufacturers in there, a really good capability. It just needed the potential unlocking, really. So I made the acquisition, and we formed Venari as the parent company. Then at the start of 2020, we took on the second factory here in West Yorkshire, and then of course we were all hit by COVID. And obviously we were all in the same boat. But in our case, we were proud owners of a new factory, and all the orders that we were going to fill it with were naturally moved to the right. So we were staring down the barrel, so to speak. But we carried on doing what we do best. We manufactured. We had a good order book of ambulances to get through, and even though supply chain was failing everywhere, we purchased new machinery, sophisticated machines, and we became our own supplier as well. And it kind of fast tracked us into really ramping up and gearing up for self-sufficiency, I suppose. And then I think we were recognised by the NHS Ambulance Trust for doing as such, and in that we were then approached by the Department of Health, and then we got involved in engineering, designing, manufacturing and delivering mobile COVID test facilities, which were delivered around the country successfully. So we've just completed our 201st test facility delivery, and then alongside that, then obviously we were observing, or I was certainly observing and really reading about the ventilator challenge by Ford Motor Company, and kind of their achievements that they were doing with that was breathtaking. 12,000 ventilators in 90 days by the Ford, McLaren and Airbus team, of course, and Penland. It was really inspirational at the time. And then at that time, Ford, who had really got the bug for using UK manufacturing and engineering for humanitarian benefits, really, they approached us with an ambition to engineer and design, and for us both to manufacture the world's most state-of-the-art ambulance. So Project Siren was commenced, and we successfully delivered that in breakneck speed, I'd say, as in a new concept from ground up to delivery and serial production ready in 12 months. Then we announced our third factory at the start of this year, which is commissioned in the Q2 of 2022, which is on Ford's Dagenham facility as part of the regeneration of Dagenham. And then during which time we confirmed the successful turnaround of the UK's oldest and largest manufacturer, O&H Vehicle Technology, with its return to profit. So I'd say Venari is more being forged through a tough time, to be honest, and it really made us. We really had to roll our sleeves up as many UK manufacturers have had to do. But I think if anything, it's taught us, when we're when our backs are against the wall, I think that's when we come into our own as a nation of manufacturers, and we do some really good stuff.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned the turnaround and getting back into profit. it's a bit of a almost a bit of a throwaway comment from yourself. There's obviously been a lot of hard graft to get to break even or even making a profit. So what do you think sets you apart? What makes you just that little bit different that's making you so successful?
Do you know what? I always think we speak about this internally quite a lot, actually, and it was. I'd left the company that that I founded and that was then acquired and rebranded into this Austrian brand. And I used to tell my customers, look, we're still North Fire. We're just wearing lederhosen now. We're just in this Austrian dress with the Austrian brand now. But it's the culture at the company never wavered, which is why we were so unbeatable. So then going from that well polished machine. Which allowed me to operate in second gear, to be honest, and going into something completely broken. That was my introduction to, the hard face of old-fashioned UK manufacturing with unions that are completely working against management and vice versa. That's not me blaming, the union. However, in 2000. At the start of this year, at the start of 2021, my guys over in Goole at O&H, they actually held a ballot and they voted to de-recognise the union in favour of having a direct relationship with me. So, once we cracked the culture, we call ourselves a family business. We're a family. We're all in it together. And as I tell the guys. On the shop floor, just look at the cleaner. Look how hard the cleaner works. She does not stop grafting. If everyone on the shop floor works as hard as the cleaner, then we will absolutely dominate our competitors, who are our main competitor being a significantly sized German manufacturer. So, we've cracked the culture. We've got the work ethic is now, the guys have gone through the gears on the shop floor, and just to bring in modern, more sophisticated processes, from purchase order to vehicles driving out of the door, we have to be as slick in terms of processes as we are on the shop floor. It's not all down to the guys on the shop floor. Of course, it's down to everyone, equally in the office. So I just think the culture, and it was, without question, I had. Back in the day, I'm talking back in the day now. I did seven years in the British Army, which I loved my time in there, and that was the place that really taught me how to, that taught me what a work ethic is. But the turnaround, give me 4 basic trainings back to back. I would find that easier than the effort of the turnaround. As in, it was. It's something else, So I think these companies that do go through a turnaround successfully, it's a really, and I observe and read more about those stories now, more intently, because it's not an easy thing. It's a hard thing, and changing the culture of being an old-fashioned British manufacturer, with militant kind of fractious relationships, to positive cultures. I think that culture can drive everything, and then you can drive the change together more compliantly, I'd say.
Morning, Oliver. Thanks for joining us again. Fascinating to hear about your year. It's been an astonishing year by all accounts. Just on that, in terms of your background, ex-military, are you more? I know that there's a large-scale recruitment drive going on at the moment with Venari for the various sites. Does that make you more inclined to take ex-services people on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, something that you're absolutely guaranteed with service leavers is that kind of work ethic thing. And I know that people are torn on military, ex-military people, but we've got now about 15% of our shop floor here at headquarters are ex-military people, and the work ethic and the togetherness is something they naturally understand, because that's really bred into them. And obviously, there are those that come out and kind of, refuse to change from the institutionalized kind of ways that are taught in there. But, there is a certain level of mentoring, as in, for example, my military mentor, a guy called Mark Gresty, he taught me everything in the army. And as a result, I went through through the ranks quicker than I was fast tracked, really, and I did well in there because I had a good mentor to keep me on the straight and narrow and teach me how to do it. So then equally then when he went through the ranks in the military and he got up to the rank of major, he came out. He asked me to mentor him out here. Right at the start of the turnaround. So he came into ONH Vehicle Technology at the start of the turnaround. And I knew what I'd get would be, a good conflict resolution guy who would concentrate solely on that togetherness and the culture whilst I'm with customers and trying to secure contracts and orders. I knew that there'd be no relenting on the togetherness and the conflict resolution element, really. So I kind of mentored him into being a civilian and shaking off his, certain elements of military behaviour that would or could have, acted as a bit of a blocker. But he's absolutely flying. He's doing a great job, and he's been working on the Department of Health contracts for the last 12 months. In a really organised. Professional fashion. So yeah, ex-military people are, as long as they're managed right and I suppose inspired, because they come from a place, with great leaders. You can't just expect them to be to automatically do well. With a bit of mentorship, they're amongst my best guys on the shop floor without question.
No, absolutely, and you brought it up to date with the Ford project and Project Siren. Any other projects that you're currently working on or pending that you can divulge today? Give us an overview of what's likely to be happening in the next few months and into next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, alternative fuels, and in particular, I'd say with COP26 has been the the marker in the sand as to look, this is now past the point where we should be progressing on electrification. Is it hydrogen? Is it electrification? Is it hybrid? Et cetera, et cetera. So we're working on some exciting projects in the bigger vehicle space market with electrification, particularly leaning towards the fire and rescue market. So we've been absent from the red stuff, let's just say. In our quest to really tear up trees and provide something world class in the ambulance market. But going back to Project Siren, I think having the team from Ford Dunton, I think we've spoken previously, Stuart. I think Ford Dunton is one of UK manufacturing's best kept secrets. Just with the facilities they've got down there, it's been an eye opener for me. But we've created a product there that is designed from the ground up, genuinely world beating in terms of the industry. So naturally, we've had a lot of export clients, big health ministers from various other regions of the globe, discussing major contract supplies. So it won't be long until we're exporting in a major way. And again, that allows us to ramp up the headcount from the new Dagenham facility, and obviously naturally we'll have to grow factory footprints accordingly in line with an increase in demand as well, of course. So it's all to go for, and I'd rather, I think, as I've said to you, Joe and Stuart, before, I'd rather fail fighting for UK manufacturing than succeed in second gear, employed by a huge continental organisation, really.
No, absolutely, and great to hear about the jobs that you're creating. Final question for me, broader question really. The market for emergency vehicles in the UK, what do you see as the threats and more interestingly, what do you see as the opportunities for the market?
Threats, Stu. I'd say I think it's a good question as well, and I think naturally as a nation we're very polite and not wanting to offend, aren't we? And but I suppose the elephant in the room is the fact that we are absolutely still procuring according to EU procurement law, and what is EU procurement law? It's an interpretation of certain words where. If you have a look in our market in, let's say, for example, Germany, then, and, I've spoken to some German fire chiefs and ambulance chiefs whilst in the country. And when I do ask them, would you consider something British built for your vehicle requirements? They say, no, of course not, because, it's funded by the German taxpayer. Therefore, German taxpayers have to build it, because then the tax that those people pay whilst they're building it goes back into the same pot that's funding it in the first place. So then when you ask the same question over here, our procurement departments, public sector procurement departments are very, very conscious of overly fairness, because, there's a case of, liability, and people don't want to upset anyone and all the rest of it. So naturally, I think the emergency services, particularly in the ambulance industry, up until very, very recently, I think we were about 80% of ambulances were imported from outside of the UK. But since 2019, and since O&H turned around and we've had a concerted push, there's another relatively decent, I'll say, UK manufacturer of ambulances. But now, with a national framework being announced, we're now 1 and 2. So there's been a shift there. However, I think I don't even think it's the revenue that's generated, the additional revenue that's generated for the economy when UK public sector buys from UK manufacturing. Obviously, that's one obvious benefit, but it's the bigger one for me is that it gives us the platform to innovate from and drive forward from and push forward from. And because we're such a big market here in the UK, if we're given the opportunity to drive innovation by our public sector in the first place, then it means that we can create something that's worthy to be exported and is desirable from an export context. And then it allows us to drive exports as well as dominating our home markets, of course. So I think it's definitely a cyclical thing that then grows success outwards. And it's just is it an awkward conversation with people to say, look, as part of these tenders that go out, we should absolutely score additional points if it's manufactured in this country, and it's a no-brainer. It absolutely should, but I suppose it's whichever procurement officer is willing to place that as a prerequisite in a tender.
Yeah, interesting one, isn't it? They always do as you've always done type scenario if you're not too careful, isn't it? So yeah, interesting. What do you think of the opportunities for British manufacturers, in the post-pandemic world in general?
Do you know what, Joe? I think I'm fully. I mean, I'm naturally an optimist anyway. It's down to our FD to be the pessimist on the board, but I think in particular, and I listen to you guys constantly, and I think you guys do a brilliant job, of course, of banging the UK manufacturing drum. But I don't think anything is kind of exaggerated. I think Stuart, you regularly say, I think 6 out of the 10 Formula One teams are based here in the UK for a reason. I think when something exceptional needs manufacturing, here is certainly the place to do it, particularly in automotive. And I think, with really exciting companies coming through, such as Arrival, with the micro factories, as they call it, albeit in SME world, that's not very micro. There's some really exciting prospects, and that's why I genuinely like and do look out for the Factory Now posts on Twitter and your stuff out on LinkedIn, Stu and Joe, in terms of contract wins for UK manufacturers and new factories and things like this. As in, I think we've got a really good opportunity to press the reset button and start really driving forward. We've got brilliant people in this country who I think everyone now has got, the bit between their teeth again. I think it's, COVID's provided a bit of a soft reset for everyone to refocus and kind of go again. So I'm optimistic about UK manufacturing for the future, and I think it'll only, increase and drive forward over the next couple of years.
Yeah, let's hope you're right. I'm sure you are. We're starting to see it, aren't we? But if we hone in on Venari again, what ambitions, aspirations, for Venari Group in the coming weeks, months, and years?
Well, we've got quite a prudent target, I'd say. Obviously, we're only an SME, so we had a turnover of 30 million last year, but that grows up to just over 100 million by 2024. And that's on a pretty prudent basis as well. We've got obviously the slightly higher ambitions than that. We want to get there by slightly earlier, and then obviously we've got quite an aggressive growth strategy. But that can only take place if we switch in the transition from we operate in a coach builder market, and we're bringing in systems and processes now that allow for automation and semi-automation in what used to be a coach builder's market. And only with that can we drive successful export opportunities with, and obviously world-class production quality. So I suppose, we've got so much to do over the next 2 to 3 years, at least, and then obviously and beyond. And I think most importantly, going back to the culture thing, without losing sight of what's in front of us, we need to keep driving the culture and keep improving it, the main, my main thing about Venari is I want it to be a great place to work, as stupid as it sounds. And this is definitely nothing negative towards, the former union that we had governing the people on the shop floor in Goole. But when the guys voted to de-recognise the union because they wanted a closer relationship with me as the CEO of the company, that was I felt like that was one of my greatest achievements, in that, it was flattering. It highlighted their passion for manufacturing to me, and it's so to keep harnessing that, keep honing it, keep listening to every single person on the shop floor, and making it a great place to work in line with the growth. I think both are equally important, and obviously reducing the emissions, driving a really strong environmental strategy as well. And that's not a gimmick and something a box that should be ticked. That's something we've all got an obligation to do. And now every Project Siren ambulance that's manufactured, for example, we plant a tree, and then that tree is given a name, but the name is the VIN number of that vehicle. So, and in conjunction with that as well, here in the factory, obviously we've got the ISO 14001 accreditation, but we need to drive that forward and become carbon neutral as soon as physically possible as well. So I'd say both, across all counts, economically and environmentally, and operationally for the frontline users as well. Everything's got to be as good as it can be, and until all of those aspects are perfect, then we can't unroll our sleeves, I'd say.
Yeah, for what it's worth, you're doing a pretty good job. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate your time. And you haven't had a day off yet, so this doesn't class as a day off.
I know I haven't had a day off since the formation of Venari, actually, and no, it's not a day off. Although I do, it should be worth pointing out that if anyone is feeling good about themselves or confident in what they've done, just speak to Stuart before the podcast, and he'll bring you down a peg or 17. So he comes across so professional on the podcast, but anyone who will know who he interviews, they're already knocked down a peg or 17 before coming on. So if anyone sounds unconfident at the start, that's the reason.
Cheers, Oliver.
Thanks, Oliver. Appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks both. Good to speak to you.
Another great interview. Stuart, pleasure to have him on as always.
Absolutely. We need to feature him every 3 months. The rate of change and growth at that company is extraordinary, isn't it?
It is, for sure. Incidentally, if you want to join us on the podcast, please do reach out to us at podcast@mtdmfg.com. And also, we don't get time to cover all the news on the podcast, so please go to mtdmfg.com, or better still, download the app for Android or for iPhone. Stuart, going back on with the news, some brilliant news about the Trent engine program, the Rolls-Royce Trent engine program.
Yes, Rolls-Royce is celebrating the delivery of its 1000th Trent XWB 84, the world's most efficient aero engine, and achieving another key milestone for the program. The Derby-built engine will power an Airbus A350. Following its entry into service in 2015, the engine quickly became the fastest-selling large engine of all time. It's now achieved over 8 million flying hours in service with more than 30 operators across the world.
And whilst we're talking about Rolls-Royce, there's some more good news about the Lancashire factory.
Absolutely, yeah. So the long-term future of Rolls-Royce's one Sutton Bonalswick factory in Lancashire has been secured after a new deal was agreed. Following a ballot, workers at the plant have accepted an enhanced agreement extending protections previously secured last year. And this includes a commitment that manufacturing will continue at the site for at least a decade. The deal comes after the site's future was left hanging in the balance early last year when Rolls-Royce announced it intended to transfer much of its jet engine blade production to Singapore, which obviously jeopardised hundreds of British jobs.
Yeah, continuing the aerospace theme, great news for Airbus and their supply chain here in the UK. They've had a very successful Dubai Air Show.
Absolutely. This is the first major air show since the pandemic struck a couple of years ago. Customers demonstrated confidence in the recovery of the aviation sector, which obviously we've covered a few times on the podcast, and also in Airbus by placing orders and commitments totaling 408 aircraft. That's 269 firm orders and 139 commitments. The aerospace giant secured orders from a host of operators, including Indigo, Air Lease Corporation, and Jazeera Airways. Great news for the wing plant in Broughton and obviously the UK's aerospace supply chain.
Yeah, and the next story, it's more automotive based. So a British truck manufacturer, they've raised money to push forward their development. What can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so a story again we covered a few months ago, but this is an update. So the electric and hydrogen truck pioneer Tevva has announced it successfully raised more than £42 million from investors, and this will go towards fitting out its brand new factory in London and scale up manufacturing. The fundraise swiftly follows the launch of the new Tevva truck, the company's first 7.5-ton electric truck designed for mass production. The firm intends to produce 3,000 trucks per annum by 2023, which should create around 1,000 skilled jobs directly and across the supply chain. So good news.
Absolutely. And the UK's first hydrogen fleet is set to be built as well.
Yes, so train maker Alstom has signed a deal to share their knowledge so that they can build the UK's first fleet. To say the Derby-based manufacturer signed a memorandum of understanding with rail operator and financier Eversholt Rail to design, build, commission and support a fleet of 10 hydrogen-powered trains. Two companies will share the technical and commercial information for Alstom to develop the new fleet in the UK, which would be based on the Aventra loco, which is currently built in Derby. Alstom hopes final contracts for the fleet will be signed early next year.
So we've covered the automotive sector, we've covered aerospace, extensively on this podcast, but there's good news coming out of the CBI, which obviously covers a broad spectrum of sectors.
Absolutely, yeah. We got this just a few minutes before the podcast. So British manufacturers' order books in the 3 months of November grew at the fastest rate on record, which goes back to the early 70s. Firms reported output increases in 12 out of 17 manufacturing subsectors, and I'm very optimistic this growth will accelerate next quarter.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? What great news that is to finish a podcast. But yeah, as I say, we don't always get time to cover the news. We've got to cut this one short, as we always do. Go to mtdmfg.com to find out all the latest news. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on LinkedIn. Big thank you to Stuart. A massive thank you to Oliver North of Venari Group. And as always, the biggest thank you goes to you at home for listening. We'll see you next week.
To the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. You can find us on Twitter using @MTDMFG and @Jefferson_MFG.